Hello everyone, my name is Ayomide Emmanuel Agbola. Welcome to my SQL learning documentary. Today we are talking about subquery. Subquery is one of the functions in SQL and it's very important because it is a little bit tricky and also straightforward when you understand the concept behind it. Subquery simply means a query inside another query. Subquery means a query inside another query. Why do we call it subquery? Subquery is like you using a query to get the result of another query. Just the way it is in the mathematics. You might be given an arithmetic to solve, and before you can arrive to the final answer, you must go through some process. For instance, if you are to find maybe as a teacher now, you want to know the students that have the highest score through the average of the class scores. What I mean is that you gave out a test to your students and you want to know the student that have the above the average of the score. And to get that, the first thing to do here is to make sure that you first of all get the average of the whole class. So it's through this average that you now understand and know the students that have above the average score. So that is as an example of what subquery does. Subquery will first of all get you a single result. And like I said, when maybe if you remember our previous video, I said the thing that give us a single result are our aggregate functions: the sum, the average, the max, the mean, and the count. Yes, those are the things that give us a single result. So this is what you also use in subquery. It's giving you a single result, whereas you will now use a single result to get the final result. And in this video, we are to write a query that returns BO number of transactions that is higher than the average number of transactions. This is what I explained earlier, that I said the first thing to do here is to make sure that we get the average first. And through this average, you can know the BO that have the highest number of transactions. So let's go into the query and start with our subquery. Subquery is the first thing that runs first in this type of query. The subquery runs first because it's like you instructing SQL to do this thing in steps. And the first thing to do is to select average transactions. Average transactions from our question that says higher than the average number of transactions. And the easiest way to do it is what? To return the average transaction from the BOs table. When you run this, it gives us a single result, which is 977 as our average. And if you remember when I was teaching us earlier in my previous video, I said when you write something like this, it won't give you a good column title. And now I'm aliasing it as average transaction to make it meaningful and professional. So if I rerun this, we will see that we have the average transaction as our column title. That's by the way. And that's the first subquery that we are going to run. The next thing to do is now to write the main query, which is the first question that we have in our query there. And the question is to write a query that returns BO's number of transactions that is higher. Write a query that returns the number of transactions. Now I'm going to use the BO ID from okay, let's use BO ID and also the transaction. I'm going to use the BO ID and the transactions from the BOs table. Now we're going to return the BO ID, the transaction from the BOs table, the number of transaction of each BO. The transaction will be before the BO ID in our result. Now we have our number of transactions for each BO ID, meaning that these are the number of transactions that each BO does in the database. Now, we have done the subquery, we have gotten our main query. The next thing to do is to merge these two together. How do we do this thing? Is we're going to use a function where. It's just telling us that, okay, SQL return the BO transaction that is more than, where the transaction is more than the average number of transaction. Where transaction is more than, that means it is greater than the greater than average number. Now we're going to copy our subquery now. And to do that, you're going to open a bracket first. When you open a bracket, you copy the subquery here and we paste it down here. We paste it down here and we end our bracket. There is a bracket up there that we open, so we must put the bracket close here. Now, can we see that we have our complete query? Now let's run it and see our result. Now we have every transaction that is more than 977, which is the average transaction. Everything we have here is more than the 977. We can't see 800, 900 again. Another thing is that make sure that your query runs separately, even in the subqueries. Your query must run separately. Your subquery must run separately. If it doesn't work that way, it means your query is not correct. Let me run the subquery first now. Can we see that it run, which is 977 for the average? And also you can also run the main query and make sure that they run separately. And if that works, it means you are doing the right thing. And run it. It will give us, yes, it will give us our previous results. I think you understand this and you can also practice them on the job or in your training. Thank you very much.